This is the JWN Podcast. My guest today is a journalist for the Post and Courier. She covers the arts and entertainment section, which is why she's able to talk to me this week, since it is the craziest week in news in American newsiness, I guess. Anyway, the Post and Courier is the oldest newspaper in the South. She is a really insightful and interesting person, and I was so happy to get to sit down and get to know her a little bit better. And I know you're going to enjoy this conversation. I'm going to warn you, she gets very journalistic-y. Is that a word? Journalistic-y? She starts asking me the questions, so it's going to be a lot about me for the first 10-15 minutes of this podcast. But just, I turn the ship around. I take control of my own podcast at a certain point. So, without further ado, here's my conversation with Kalyn Oyer. Do you want, I got regular water or I've got grape, fake LaCroix?
That's fancy over here. I'll just take the regular water, but thank you.
I will get mine prepared.
There you go. Ooh,
it sounds so cool.
Love that sound.
Almost better than the typical bong sound for music.
Yeah.
I think when I was a kid, my first band, we had definitely had that sound of all right, let's get a. I think no, it wasn't a bong hit. It was a Zippo lighter, and then the sound of someone taking a drag of a joint, and then
yeah, that
that
was it.
Yeah, so that sound, yeah,
beautiful
teenage years. So, welcome to the JWN Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
You were on the list. I have this list. I shouldn't tell people. I say this because at some point,
who's on the list? We gotta know.
It's a pretty lengthy list.
Yeah,
but I was trying to come up with this diverse list of because I know so many people down here.
Right.
But I was like, I don't need to just do people down here because especially when I first started it.
When did you move to Charleston?
15 years ago.
Wow. Okay.
So it's been a long time.
Yeah.
But I only started coming out. That sounds weird.
Yeah.
But being social, maybe in the last, I don't know, 7 or 8 years.
What did you do before that?
This is an interview of you.
Okay,
friend.
I know, but I'm a journalist. I have to ask the questions too. I can't help it.
Okay, so I used to play in a band,
right?
And we used to tour worldwide and do all sorts of fun stuff.
Rad.
90s punk band, whatever.
Yeah.
I met my wife.
Right.
When we were on tour, we were playing in Spartanburg.
So cute. Okay.
We were playing in Spartanburg, and I remember the show vividly because we got there and there's nobody there. And we're like, what the hell happened? They were like, the headlining band, which was Fear, they canceled. And we're like, this is before people had cell phones. We had a cell phone, but it was the old flip phone.
Old school.
It was $5 a minute. So they didn't even... So we just had showed up and we're like, okay.
Well, I guess we're not going to get that show that we thought we were going to get.
Yeah. There's a few locals in there. Mm-hmm. And we're like, well, we're here. Might as well play for the bar. This huge place. And we're playing for 12 people sitting at the bar.
Honestly, I've been to shows like that before and they're so fun. If you're really into the band and you're in the crowd and it's I'm getting a VIP show right now. It's really fun. For the band, it's always a struggle.
Yeah, it's always
there's nobody here to see me. Where's the energy, Yeah,
and then, and it'll always be a split. One guy in the band's let's do this. And the other the guys are I'm
let's
tired.
Go to bed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, I played, and after we played, this isn't even after we played, we're sitting at the bar, drinking what we probably weren't going to get paid anyway. But
yeah, fair.
And this girl walks in.
Hey.
And I was just like, oh, I'm going to go talk to that girl. And I did. And I ended up hanging out with her that night. I didn't even have a phone to give her. I didn't even have a personal phone. Not even a cell phone.
It was
or
the
a
band
landline.
had a phone. Was it that kind of thing?
I didn't even know that number.
Oh my gosh.
And I didn't have my own personal email address.
Wow. So there's no way to get in touch.
We had a band email address.
Okay.
So I wrote, she was working at Applebee's at the time and going to Clemson.
Nice.
And I wrote my email address on this Applebee's pad. And my opening line when I first started talking to her that night was, you know who you look like? Which is the worst
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Because it's just, the chances of that landing well are so friggin' far because you don't, you know what I'm saying? First of all, it's an awful, you know, no one wants to be like, I look like someone else. They want to look like themselves.
Right, yeah.
And then I talked to her and she was like, I'm like, you know who you look like? And she's like, no. And I'm like, Gillian Anderson. She's like, who the fuck is Gillian Anderson?
Well, there's the opening right there.
Yeah. So then I had to explain that she's Scully on the X-Files.
Right.
And then she was just like, oh, okay, I've never seen it.
Oh my God.
And I was like,
and now do y'all watch the X-Files together?
Well.
You couldn't get her into it. Oh no.
Well, no, I mean, I spent the night talking to her and that was about it. Afterwards, you know, we went on our ways. I didn't hear from her. This was in the beginning of the summer, maybe late spring, early summer.
Yeah.
I didn't hear from her till like September, October, or whenever like the fall season.
Right.
And this is how long ago this was because the X-Files was still on TV.
Yeah.
And I get this random email out of nowhere from this girl from South Carolina.
You're like, wait a second.
And she had seen a commercial for the X-Files and it clicked in her head. So apparently
Cute.
like that, after that like night,
Yeah.
she had quit her job. So
What?
She had, you know, her pad. She just remembered like the pad was in the back of her car.
Oh my God.
And found the pad.
And had the email address on there.
And it still had the email address.
Wow, what are the odds?
And contacted me. And then we just started emailing back and forth.
The universe. Wow.
Yeah. It was a weird thing. And then on my band was playing the Warped Tour in Australia.
Very cool.
And on the plane back. Now imagine it's like the 24-hour flight.
Yeah, that's a long flight.
Total, because you got to go all the way to LA, then you got to go all the way to Australia. And then when we got to Australia, we had to take another flight to where we're going in Australia. It was a lot. You know, so no internet like device.
Right.
You had like a paperback book and a literal like Walkman.
That was all to entertain you for a full day, basically.
Yeah, the cassette tapes and batteries that would die. Like
right.
So a lot of time to think. And I remember on the way back, I was like, I really like that girl in South Carolina. So I called her up one day and I'm giving you like this whole story.
I know. I
this
love
is turning
this.
into
this. We need to turn this into its own podcast.
This is the reverse
You're
podcast.
meeting your
What's going
wife's
on
story.
Here? Yeah. So then I met her. I contacted her when I got back and I told her, you know, I bet you wouldn't marry a guy like me. Just kind of throw away just joke type of thing to say.
Yeah.
And she's like, I bet you I would.
What?
And I said, when? She's like, I don't know. I got spring break coming up.
Oh my God.
And
that was
so,
your proposal?
It was terrible.
Oh my God.
Dude, I am the worst.
It's kind of great though. I honestly love that.
Yeah. And so I get this thing going on where I'm just like, okay, what day do you want to get married? She's like, I always wanted to get married on a Wednesday.
Oh my God.
Well, that Wednesday turned out to be St. Patrick's Day.
Did you get married on St. Patrick's Day?
Sure did.
Wow.
I found a guy who had like a backyard chapel out in Long Island.
Cute.
He did all the weddings on the Ricky Lake show.
Oh my God, amazing.
Our wedding cost $100.
That's amazing. You did it right. You did it right there.
And the video would have cost us an extra $25, and I didn't have an extra $25.
Yeah, like we can't have the video. We
so
gotta
I'm
just
so
go
sad. Years later, I'm like, there's a video. And the two guys that were in my band were our maid of honor and best man, dressed in matching sweatsuits. They didn't know. I just needed witnesses. So I was like, hey guys, I need you to come with me to do something. And on the way
they
there,
had no idea you were getting married.
No, and on the way there, I'm like, okay, so I'm getting married to this girl, and they're like, what?
What is happening?
Yeah, so it was
that is wild. That's a wild story right there.
And 21 years later, we're still together.
Crazy.
So after we got married,
yeah,
I think we did maybe one or two more tours after that.
Yeah.
She went back to school actually. She got married and flew back to South Carolina, finished off the semester. And then I took a Greyhound down to South Carolina, which was awful. Like that experience was just like, oh my gosh.
Worse than the 24-hour flight from Australia.
Oh, way worse.
Oh no.
Way worse. There's nobody coming down the aisle giving you, champagne and stuff. When we flew to Australia, I'm like going all over the place. It was on New Year's Eve, and we kept crossing the date line. And every time we crossed the date line,
it was another New Year's Eve.
The plane was empty. So every time we hit New Year's,
another champagne toast. Let's go.
They would come give free champagne.
That's
so we got
amazing.
Yeah, that was a fun flight there. On the way back, it was packed and boring.
You didn't get the champagne toast.
But I got to figure out my life.
Well, that's important too. So.
Yeah. So after she came back, I mean, I did a couple more things with the band. Things were getting like a little rocky with the band type of thing.
Yeah.
You know, we were just we're having troubles with personnel, and my desire to keep it on was just going away. You know, like you're getting older, the crowd's staying the same age, and you're just like, I don't know if I want to keep doing this.
Yeah.
And then I went back to school, and
here's your
had
story
babies.
From there. Yeah.
And eventually my wife chipped away and moved us back to South Carolina because she didn't like.
I was gonna say, I remember seeing you and your daughter at where was it? A music festival in Atlanta.
In Atlanta. It's Shaky Knees.
Shaky Knees, yes.
Shaky Knees is my favorite. Dude, I've got the tattoo.
Oh, you did? What year did you get it? That's the question.
Last year.
The last one you could?
Yeah. Was it? Maybe it was a year before the last one. I don't know. It could have been the last one that you picked.
So you got in free last year.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I'm on the registry though. So I'm good for life. As long
forever.
And I was like, holy cow, what a curse.
I know, because then look what happened this year.
They might just be able to just say, we're never going to have it again. Because
I really hope they don't do that. I need that to come back. I know. That's like my favorite.
It is my favorite music festival
Me too.
Of all time. I used to hate music festivals.
Really?
Because we played them and it was just
different experience.
I was like, this is so rude to the audience. Like, this is so much to just be outside all day long.
Yeah,
it's like,
you're sweaty, disgusting, tired. You have to run between stages.
And then there's so much.
So fun.
And
I love it.
Now as an adult, I love it because, you learn how to handle it, and how to pace yourself and all that stuff. Yeah, I took my daughter to Shaky Knees. Oh gosh, was it 2014? Whichever year the Replacements played.
Okay.
And I didn't know Shaky Knees.
That was before I started. I think I started going 2015.
2015 was the best year.
Yeah.
I was wearing that shirt the other day.
Oh my God.
The 2015
I love
Shaky Knees shirt.
The lineup.
The Strokes. And it was so good.
So good.
And the Avett Brothers played. That was a crazy lineup. And then when you look at the bands that were like lower on the list that became huge, and you're like, what?
You're like, whoa! I love that when you just see a band that you don't know much about at the time, and then like 2 years later, they're like huge, and you're like, wow! I saw them before they were cool. The ultimate hipster move.
Exactly.
Except not really, because they're still playing a festival. So it's like, all right, well, they knew. Somebody knew.
I just remember going to that festival to go. I only wanted to see Modest Mouse played that day too. Well, there was a couple other, and there were some bands I'd never seen before that I got turned on to while I was there.
Love that.
And I just remember walking around going like, this is fantastic.
Yeah, I love and they've changed venues a couple of times, right? But every time I love the tent space that they have. That's my favorite, where they have like most of the punk bands, I guess. Right?
Yeah, the kind of smaller, but still
lots of energy.
I saw Japan Droids there.
Yes,
in the
me
tent.
too.
Yes. That was
so
awesome.
Cool.
But that's kind of how. So I went back to school, came here, started my own business when I got here, and then once my kids got to a certain age, I was just like, I want to go out and see shows, and I'm like, what's going on here? And I kind of like discovered the scene and used my photography love to kind of just.
That's how I got into festivals was photography because I was actually writing album reviews for this place called Mixdown based in LA. And they're just an online blog and they cover music, arts, gaming culture, like a bunch of different stuff. And so I started doing like indie album reviews for them. And they were sending me stuff like once a week. I would crank out an album review. And then I was like, well, I do some concert photography stuff too, which I had just kind of gotten into at the time. And they're like, oh, well, like we'd love for you to take photos of bands coming through Charleston because we don't have a Charleston photographer. And I was like, okay, cool. I'll do that. So I did that a little bit. And then they were like, we love your photos. Like, why not go to music festivals in Atlanta since that's near you? And I was like, okay, sure.
Music Midtown's calling.
So Music Midtown and Shaky Knees. And I did that for 5 years.
So awesome.
So fun. Literally so fun.
There's something fun about going to a show
and not
having to shoot it.
The whole thing with shooting it is it's like you get to be 50 feet away, even closer sometimes, to like some of your favorite bands for the first 3 songs. So you get like that special experience, but you're working technically during it, right? But for me, it was like, I'm getting into a festival for free. I mean, for me, I was like, that's all I need right there. I get access. VIP treatment. But then it's like, you have to run from stage. You really do have to run from stage to stage. So you can't stay for the whole set because you're like, well, I got to be at this band and this band and this band. And I mean, the schedules are insane that they make you shoot. It's crazy.
And they want every band.
Oh, you're like, as many bands as you can get. I'm like, I've done like 15 bands today. I can't do it. I can't,
And the thing I've discovered from going at it, like not because I've been hired to shoot music.
Right.
But it's not my like thing. You know what I'm saying? Like to go, that's not my profession when it comes to photography. I'm doing a lot more corporate stuff. But you do a really good
job at it.
But when I go, I'm going because I want to. And so the best photos always come towards the end.
100%.
When if the band is having a great set.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's so much fun. But that's the problem when you got to go shoot a festival.
You're like first 3 songs, the energy isn't necessarily up yet.
Yeah. And I mean, sure, the band all looks fresh and clean because they're not sweaty yet, but who cares?
I love catching those in between photos. Like there's the pretty shot and then you got that like, I have a triple chin and I'm growling like in between. And I'm like, they don't want this picture of them out there, but I love it because it has the energy that you don't see all the time, So those are what I try to catch. And then like, so I'll post that and I'm like, oh, here's your pretty shot. And here's like what the people like love. This is when they were really feeling you,
Yeah. And it's fun. I always try to talk myself, like remind myself, because you get into this thing where you start documenting. The band, and you're looking for the good shot on stage, and I'm like, I need to remember to turn around and get the crowd.
I know I'm so bad at crowd shots. I feel like I have only taken photos of like concerts. I do not do any other type of photography, but like I started out just taking like close up, on like a Canon 70 to 200 millimeter. Like close-up pictures of people, like just you can get like 1 or maybe 2 people on stage in at the same time. And so when I had that lens, I was like, well, I can't get a good crowd shot from the pit because I don't have the right lens. And that was like the only lens I came with, I think, the first 2 years that I was doing this. Yes, I know. So I'm like, no crowd shots. We're just getting close-ups of the band. I mean, I wasn't professional. I didn't know. I was like, this is all I can afford. Like, I was renting the lens for like the weekend. Man. It was crazy. Yeah.
And it's tough because the pit, depending on the band who's playing, you might be like super looking for space in the pit, even though you're not in the crowd.
Right. I'm like, this lens does not accommodate certain stages and vibes for sure. Yeah. But then I got a different lens, so. Nice. Crowd shots are just harder for me, man.
You have to get in the crowd.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to get in the crowd.
It's a different vibe.
Dude, the best festival I've ever shot photographically, Riot Fest in Chicago.
Oh, fun.
Because I got one of my favorite pictures I've ever taken at a music festival. Yeah. And was it Anti-Flag is playing? And there's a group of kids playing Uno. Sitting in the middle with a circle pit going around it.
That's amazing.
And it's just they planned it, like they got on Reddit and said, hey, we're gonna play Uno in the middle of the pit.
That's beautiful.
And so I got that, and then there was the wall of death during the Village People.
Wow.
And I got slammed hard to get those photos, but it was so worth it.
You were like, worth it.
It was because it was such a
my camera lens, still worth it.
Yeah, middle of the day, like clear as day, what was going on. If you know what a wall of death was, it was like the perfect, like, okay, this is what it is. And then like the string of the burst of photos of like you seeing everything get blurry because I'm getting tossed around.
Right. Oh, it's so fun.
So now that we're like 20 minutes into this conversation, I need to learn about Kalyn Oyer, because when they see the name on here and they're like, why is this asshole talking about himself the whole time?
I'm sorry. I had to ask questions.
That's okay. What I want to know from you, A, where did you grow up?
I grew up here in Charleston. Yeah, I'm one of the rare locals.
I had
a
no
native.
idea.
Yeah.
Did you go to school here too?
I did. I went to Palmetto Christian Academy in Mount Pleasant. Mm-hmm.
I've never even heard of it.
Yeah, it's a little tiny high school that was like connected to a Baptist church. And that's where I went to school. My mom was a teacher forever, like in the Charleston community. And she was like, you're going to private school because the public schools here suck, which they do, as we know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I ended up going to private school for middle school and high school.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. I had no idea. For
you didn't think I was from here.
For some reason, I just had it in my head that you were from somewhere else and that you came here. And because I don't know why I thought that.
I don't know. People think I'm from like the West Coast a lot I guess because I don't have the Southern accent. No. But it's like if you grow up in the cities here in the South, you don't have an accent, I feel like.
Yeah.
But
it depends.
Yeah, I guess it depends place to place. But like the people I knew in Charleston never had a Southern accent, really. I don't know why. They're just a thing.
Wow. Yeah. It's funny because my wife doesn't have a thick Southern accent.
But she's got like a little bit.
It's not even, I think if you were to talk to her, you probably wouldn't even hear it.
Yeah.
But when I was living in New York and I would talk to her on the phone, I was like, she's got such a thick accent. And now that I live down here, she's like, she barely has an accent.
Right, right.
And then my friends in New York think I have an accent now. So I'm like, okay.
That's funny.
What can you do? So you went to this tiny little, what was your graduating class?
We graduated with 12 people.
Wow.
So I was the salutatorian because there were only 12 people to battle against for grades. But because of that, I got a scholarship to go to college in state. So I went to USC in Columbia because, I mean, I was like, hey, I have this scholarship for being number 2 in a class of 12 people, which is like every other high school. It's like if you're the salutatorian, that means something really, you know, and here it was like, wow, you know, like, I guess it means something.
Good for you for making it through high school and being able to keep it together enough.
Yep.
That's so fun. My graduating class was 22 people.
Wow. Okay, so you went to a small school too.
Oh yeah. And it was like everyone hated each other at the end by the time we got to the senior year.
It was a little, I don't know. We had like literally 5 girls in our grades. We all just like were forced friends, you know, but one of them is my roommate today.
No way.
So it's like we connected really well. I mean, we've been best friends for years and years. I
think over time, like the people that I still talk to from high school, they're like special people because you went through something.
You went through something together
that not everybody has that experience of going to a tiny little high school.
We were like one clique because you like there's not room for more than like one group, you know.
You were so forced to get along with people you might not normally get along with.
I was like, who knows if I would have been friends with those people at a giant high school, but because there were literally like 12 of us, we all got along somehow. We made it work, you know.
That's so awesome. You have a very different dynamic than I had because there was only 6 boys.
Wow, so it was kind of the opposite.
It was so many girls, yeah. So and I was so I was just not on the pulse with that whole with like my high school scene. I had my own group of friends out because I got into punk rock and like they were all into James Taylor.
Well, like back then I was into music, but I wasn't necessarily as into music as I am. I feel like I've always been into music, but like my true taste for music developed more in college than in high school, I would say. Because in high school, I was like, I'm listening to what's on the radio. That's what I was doing. And my friend who was in my grade, her dad ran the Coliseum for years here.
No way.
So we used to get free tickets to shows. So we'd go and see like
the big acts.
Hillary Duff, and we met Taylor Swift, and you know that kind of thing, which was so cool when you're a teenage girl.
I might have been at that Taylor Swift concert.
Oh my God, probably.
Because I took my daughter there as a surprise. Like it was either maybe a Christmas present or something.
Wow. Yeah, we were probably at the same show.
And it was maybe her second album.
Fearless tour.
Yes. Yep. Where she had like a set change for every song.
It was crazy. It was crazy.
And they had like a little like tweet your message and they would play the messages up on the screen.
Yeah. That was a show. That was a show right there.
Or text your message. I think this might have been pre-Twitter. Who knows?
Yeah. I don't even know. I don't remember.
It was pretty. It was.
I
intense.
just remember all the outfit changes. I was like this, and like all the the levels of the stage. She was like up here, and then like you know,
yeah, it was like a Barbie dream house at one point.
Yeah,
like, what is
like,
this?
What's happening?
Did she build a whole high school on stage?
Right.
But yeah, and I remember having like a little mental battle in my head as I'm sitting there watching it as a grown adult with his, kid.
Yeah.
And, and I'm not alone. There's lots of parents with their kids.
Right.
And the sound of the audience was like deafening, like,
just like that high-pitched scream. Yep.
And so you're just like, okay, this is something.
I was part of that for sure.
And it was drowning out the fact that Taylor Swift was not hitting any notes.
I don't even remember. Like, I couldn't even tell you that she wasn't hitting notes. I was like, I'm seeing Taylor Swift, and I just met her backstage. I mean, it was a blur. It was a blur. That whole night was a blur.
I think the fans wouldn't know because they're singing along.
I had no idea. Yeah, I was
lyric.
screaming the lyrics.
Yeah,
right.
And so, but me, I didn't know the song, so I was just, I really enjoyed the show.
But you
like I so enjoyed it,
Taylor.
But she kept hitting bad notes,
funny.
And I was like, you know what? When I worked, so in between me coming here, I used to work at MTV. And when I worked at MTV.
Didn't know that. That's cool.
When I worked at MTV, Hillary Duff was one of the ones the sound engineers at TRL had the raw tapes.
That is, oh my God. I used to watch TRL after school like every day.
The raw tapes of some of these
were so
pops.
bad.
The worst
I remember
ones,
seeing Rihanna, and she was so bad on TRL. It was like the worst performance I had ever seen. And I was like...
They let her actually sing.
I know. It was like live on stage. And I was like, wow, this is so bad. Like every note is off. And then you hear her now, and it's like, you're like one of the best singers of our time. But like how much of that is...
Well, TV's hard. TV is so hard to do, especially pop music. Especially if they're dancing and putting on more of a show.
Yeah, which she was for sure.
So, and it's just difficult in that kind of situation because it's so the timing of everything. It's so much easier for them to sing to a track. Yeah, it's just easier for everyone involved. It sounds better. Yeah. It's easier to take care of. It's not everything's predictable. So I understood why, but they would record the mic. So they're singing along to a track, but the actual feed from the mic would sound like the worst karaoke you've ever heard.
Oh God.
It was terrible. But I remember Hillary Duff was one of the ones that was like, oh no, painful. That Yikes. And witnessing the band POD. Do you remember them at all?
Oh, I remember the name.
They had a couple of hit songs that were terrible, but the guy had dreadlocks or whatnot. It was
oh wow, it's a vibe.
But they were half playing and because they had like these vocal chant things that were recorded, and so they were they were practicing trying to sync up to the track because they're an actual band, and if they sped up, then the track would be off, and it was just a nightmare because I was doing some work, and I'm just hearing them play the song over and over again and just completely go like messing up, and I was like, oh gosh, I don't know how they're going to pull this one. It sounded fine, if I recall. I don't remember there being a problem, but I remember hearing them try to line up with the track was funny because they were actually playing as a band. Yeah, which is really
that's hard though. Mm-hmm. That is hard.
Yeah, it was definitely a weird one. But anyway, you sound like. Correct me.
Okay.
Only child?
I am an only child. How did you know this?
Because. I just imagine with your school experience and what you went through, and then the fact that you didn't have you don't have an older sibling to give you a musical
you're right
gift of like, here's what the cool kids are listening to. Kalyn.
My dad was like my music guru because he's the one who introduced me to like his classic rock CD collection. So that's what I grew up on, was like Pink Floyd and the Rolling Stones and Led Zeppelin, which to this day I still love all those bands.
I know. I love that whole genre of music.
Me too.
Because of when I discovered it. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was really what it was that and pop music that I was listening to when I was, in middle school. That's crazy. I guess rap, because rap was kind of becoming a big thing in like the early 2000s. And I remember like that being a big thing. Like, wow. Yeah. So just like whatever's on the radio and then classic rock. Those were like or I guess whatever was in my parents' CD collection.
All right.
We had some Lionel Richie in there,
That's a lot. Lionel Richie.
Some Anne Murray.
There you go. That's some good stuff. So you got saved from
Fleetwood Mac. I mean,
You didn't get. I shouldn't say saved. That's not fair. But you didn't get hit with like the pop country stuff.
No, I never had that, which to this day, I don't really like that genre of music. And it's like maybe a big part of that was because I didn't grow up on that,
I was talking to Matt Zutell.
Yes.
And
how's Matt doing?
He is a freaking fantastic human being.
Good. He's so great.
He was somebody that when I was like, oh, I want to talk to that guy.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what to expect because every time I see him, it's just like, hey, how you doing? Blah, blah, blah. But never really having any kind of meaningful conversation. So I got to sit down with him like
that.
This.
Yes.
And get to know like what he's all about. And yeah, he's a swell guy. He's definitely a swell guy. But I was telling him how moving to this area opened my eyes up to like different types of music that were of the area.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
for sure. I mean, we have a lot of like that folk sound here. And I love that type of music, but it wasn't something that I grew up with or necessarily that I knew about until I started getting into like the Hearts and Plugs type bands.
Right.
And it was like that indie rock and like with a little splash of folk vibe.
Yeah.
And I got into it.
A tinge of the jam band.
A tinge of jam band, yeah.
But like with a pop sensibility. Like
right. It's kind of like a little bit everything, but it's very
Hootie
distinct.
and the Blowfish makes a lot more sense when you understand the Charleston music scene because I'm not going to say Hootie represents the Charleston music scene, but that kind of music makes more sense.
I mean, it's the Windjammer, really. It's like the bands that are playing on the beach, that laid back vibe that you want, but still energy. It's a fun summer day in Charleston. You're getting drunk on Isle of Palms. I mean, come on.
Yeah. Not too fast, and you can move to it.
Feel good.
Yeah. It's on the surface, if you don't live here.
Right.
You might not get it right away.
Well, if you are visiting here, you're going to get the cover bands. You're going to get, which again, there's some good cover bands here that are great musicians in their own right. But it's like the original music scene is what I've always been drawn to,
There's a guy who used to work in this building who's in a 90s cover band in Charleston.
Oh my God.
That they're amazing, like talented musicians.
Yeah.
And he used to tell me like, oh yeah, he sings. And then I caught him in a bar once. I was like, "Holy cow! You're really
good, yeah."
Like he could pull off a Chris Cornell cover. I was like,
"All right.
Okay." So anyway, all right. So you go to college.
Yes.
When you got to college, did you know why you were there?
Yes, since I was younger, even I've always wanted to do writing in some form. So like at first I wanted to be an author. I was like, I'm going to write novels, mystery novels, because like Agatha Christie was my hero and I loved Nancy Drew. And so that was like my goal. And then when I like started in college, my major freshman year was print journalism, but I wanted to focus more on magazines. Like I didn't want to write for a newspaper. I didn't want to do the hard news. I wanted to do the soft news. I've always wanted to do these in-depth feature stories about people. And that takes a little more time than writing like the, crime news of the day or whatever. And so I started out in print journalism, and then my advisor was like, well, newspapers are dying. You're never going to get a job at a newspaper. And so I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll switch to public relations because I was like in the same school, but you had kind of a more well-rounded education, I guess, that gave you a lot of different sides of things. So I did that. And the whole time I worked on the magazine at USC, because that was my true passion, and wrote way too many articles about musicians, like in Columbia. And everyone was like, is this a music magazine or the student magazine? And I was like, I can't help it, you guys. And then I interned at Charleston City Paper. And that's when I knew that I wanted to write about music, because I started doing those little like briefs that they do on bands that are playing in town. And then I started doing features. And then I started freelancing for them and just doing band features and bands coming through town. And that was my passion. So and then I got a job at a newspaper, which I was told I would never get a job at, which was hilarious, the irony of that.
And so you're now a journalist for the Post and Courier, and specifically you are the Charleston scene now.
Well, yeah. Well, it's so interesting because we had, for you, so Marcus Amaker really kind of started the current
Someone
what
else who's
used to
on
be.
my list, by the way.
Yes,
and
he's great. Oh,
I don't think he knows who I am. So I'm like a little nervous to be like, hey, I'm some random dude. Can you come on my podcast?
Marcus is so great. I'll put in a good word for you.
Yeah, he's
no, he'll talk to you.
He
for
was
sure.
one of the first people I was like, I want to talk to that guy.
He's great.
So anyway,
fascinating.
So he started the Charleston.
He started
scene.
like before that. It used to be called Preview, which was this like giant edition when they had like 10 writers on staff that were all doing just arts entertainment coverage, or maybe even more than that. And then Marcus took it over, and it was Charleston Scene, and that's what we've known for the last decade before I got there. And then recently with the coronavirus, we've had the papers are losing money. Everything's losing money right now. And so they had to turn this beautiful thing that I put my heart and soul in for years, which is this gorgeous print product that you can pull out of the paper every week. And now we have one page in the newspaper, which is just, it kills me, it like stabs me in the soul. But I've been writing for mostly like the Sunday Life section. But I mean, all of it, it's like I'm still writing the same type of stuff. It's just going to be online and in different areas of the newspaper.
I have to tell you, I'm one of the problems.
What do you mean by that?
With newspapers,
because you don't have the subscription.
I have never subscribed to a newspaper in my life.
I mean, it's ever. Okay because like I'll go ahead and say I haven't either, which is really bad for somebody who works for a newspaper. But it's just like I get my information from all weeklies a lot of the time. Like City Paper was what I read every week.
Yeah. Just to get the Village Voice back up in New York.
Yeah, exactly.
And but even still, like the print thing, I was always just like, by the time I was old enough to care about current events, it was all online.
Exactly.
And it was,
you can get so much online now, so it's hard to like kind of have that. Yeah. I will say at the Post and Courier, we have this really cool group of people that I work with. Like I love my coworkers that are, really dedicated to telling the deep stories that you won't get online. It's like, you'll get like the basics of what happened, or like you'll get an event listing on Holy City Center, which is amazing. Love him and what he does. But it's like, if you want the in-depth, like the deep stuff, we got it at PNC,
Yeah, it's definitely, because there was a time when there was no online subscription. Yeah. It was just free online.
Right.
And then at a certain point, like all the newspapers started going like,
we need to make money.
Someone's got to get paid. And,
capitalism, man.
Photographers all got fired, and everyone's like, just use your cell phone.
Oh, God, I know. Rough.
Yeah. So journalism is tough because it's the
writing
medium
is tough in general, I think. Well, to get paid to write is so hard.
You don't get paid enough for the amount of work.
So, yeah, it's just...
It's a weird thing, but it's so necessary.
Right.
Like the stuff that the New York Times have been putting out in the last few years.
So important.
Unbelievable.
Right.
Unbelievably, like the kind of effort that goes into that journalism, they're doing
the real investigative stuff. Yeah, and we're exposing actual corruption.
They're doing like the FBI's work.
Yeah, exactly. It's crazy.
And when you see the Senate referencing news articles as evidence, and or the House whenever they're investigating anything, and you're like, yeah, this is
without
why
these journalists, we wouldn't know this.
Right. And so I'm wondering what the future is for someone like you, because obviously the print version is dying.
Exactly.
It's going to go away eventually. And it's a hard sell. I know like Apple tried to come up with Apple News.
Right.
As like an aggregate, like you pay this and we'll distribute the money, which like, yeah, that works.
Right.
But it seems like, oh, that might be a cool thing. But where does it go? What do you see as the future for your online, love and passion?
Man. I mean, my love and passion is magazines, which again, they can exist in an online form. It's not like, they have to be print. But I mean, Rolling Stone, man. I mean, can you imagine that just like not being a handheld?
Well, the Rolling Stone, it was smart. And I think it will still be relevant for a long time. Hopefully. I don't know. It gets thinner and thinner. But because they get like and Annie Leibovitz
Right.
to take the photos. And same thing with Vanity. She works at Vanity Fair too. But those type of magazines where they really are still attracting the right talent.
Yeah.
To make it so if you're a photography fan, you're like, no, I want the print version because I want to seeing a photograph on a screen, on a backlit screen, is so different
I'm wondering
than it printed out.
If, print's going to come back in just like vinyl came back in. It's like this kind of lost thing that maybe the next generation isn't going to have anymore. And it's not going to exist for years. And people are going to be like, wait, this used to exist? We used to have paperback books. What? And I think it's going to make a comeback, maybe. I mean, that's my hope.
There's art magazines that I still see. I still get Juxtapose. I get High Fructose, like those kind of magazines, and they come on this glorious thick paper.
It's just pretty.
Yeah, there's something like holding it, and you're like, there's a texture to that whole thing, and the artwork looks different when it's not backlit. So, for me,
it's like magazines are like where my passion is, but it's also like writing is really where my passion is. So as long as I get to do that and interview bands and artists and creative people and tell their stories, and no matter what format that's in, I'm going to be happy,
There's something that about the old school, like Rolling Stone for like Hunter S. Thompson type, where they go and spend time with the person they were interviewing with. Days, weeks, get to know, go back over months.
Right.
Going back and multiple visits.
That's the dream.
What was it? Almost Famous, that movie.
Yes, I want to live that life. Like, that is my dream.
But have you ever done anything close to that?
No, nothing like that, because you don't have the time or resources at a local newspaper where you have to crank out daily, weekly content. It's like you could maybe do like one story a year where you really are dedicating that excess time to create a longer piece. The one thing that I did, which was really cool, a story that I was proud of, was went to Athens to go to the Kinder Core record label there and to talk about vinyl resurgence and how it was, affecting Charleston artists who are printing their vinyl with this Athens pressing company. And so that was cool because it was like more in depth. I get to go out of town. I spent a couple days with them at the plant. Talk to a lot of local artists about like the process and why vinyl is back in. And that was fun for me. And that wasn't even near on the level of like Almost Famous, but it was still.
Did you know when you were doing it that like, this is what I always dreamed of?
Yes, it was exactly that. I loved it.
This year is so messed up with vinyl too.
Right.
Because the bands are all, there's like this delay.
Yeah.
So I have this stack of vinyl that's still in the shrink wrap. Because I've already listened to the album like months in advance. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm like, oh yeah, I can't wait to listen to that thing. Then the stack keeps growing and I'm like,
what am I going to do with all these records? Oh yeah, my collection is growing. It's getting too big for the space that I live in.
And Bandcamp are like my way. I'm like, how am I going to support these artists?
Right. And I feel like vinyl is cool because you have this art. Again, it's like that print. It's a piece of art that you really have and can hold. And there's something special about that.
There is you're experiencing the music like you're really like, you know what I'm saying? It's not just something that you passively listen to.
Exactly.
You're actively
when I
listening.
put a record on and drop that needle, you're actively listening to it.
And it's fun to talk to somebody who has that passion for music because it's I remember as a kid not having it. Like I remember very clear as day, like you were saying earlier, like you just knew it was on the radio, that kind of thing.
Right.
I remember like right around puberty-ish, right before puberty, and like as the kids start popping off, like all of a sudden like you knew when someone would hit puberty because all of a sudden they would be into certain things, like they care about their clothes.
Yeah.
And I remember like just the music, like all of a sudden I'm like, why do all these girls like this music?
Yeah.
And then I was like, what I don't get it. And then I would listen to it and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then I started to like it,
Right.
And then I had an older brother who
there you go. So you got your music taste handed down, informed.
Yeah, so he was huge into the Ramones and the Pixies and the Replacements and all that kind of stuff.
Cool.
So I had like this kind of window into music that my friends didn't know at the time. You know, they were all discovering hard rock, like hair metal.
You know
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like that was my like
right.
late
And
80s
I feel like I skipped that generation because my parents were from, 60s, 70s era.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was like I didn't have an older sibling who was born in the 80s or anyone really to inform like the in-between 80s and 90s music. So I was like a 2000s. I mean, I was a 90s baby, but the 2000s were when I was into music, So that was Nickelback informed me,
The glam thing is so hard to like when you were there growing up with it, when especially like a 13-year-old boy and like Warrant or Poison's on, like, and you're just like, yeah, this is normal. This is perfectly okay. And every song is like totally objectifying women.
Yep.
Like it made some of the 90s rap sound tame as far as just how silly and cartoonish, like the depiction of sex and sexuality.
Oh, yeah. That was the early 2000s, I feel like were really like an era where that was just a thing, Well,
I think the late 90s and early 2000s, hip hop went through a glam phase.
Mm-hmm.
And where it was definitely a very two-dimensional kind of thing, but it was fun.
Exactly.
And you didn't know any better, so when you I feel like trying to explain like why you like why
this
you
little
would like
kid
this
at
music.
A Christian high school is like
it's just a hard thing to understand looking back, because it's almost like something that a lot of people maybe have forgotten existed. Like, oh yeah, remember when Winger sang she's only 17? Like, yeah, that's not creepy at all.
Not at all. No, fine.
That's fine.
It's fine.
Yeah, we should all be just sing along.
Yikes. Yep.
Yeah. So, okay. You get into your dream job.
Yes.
You've had some tastes of your things that you like to do, like getting further and further into like the more journalistic stuff.
Yeah.
Do you have free reign of picking what you want to do stories on?
Well, that's a good question, because it's a little bit of that and a little bit of not that. So when I first started out at the paper, I had more free reign because Charleston Scene was still more of an alt weekly style in which we had several freelancers who were writing, a theater column, a visual arts column. And so I got to really focus on music. So when I started, it was like 100% my dream job, because I'm doing what I did for City Paper. I'm interviewing bands that are coming through town. I'm getting to know local bands and doing like feature stories on them. And then as it kind of progressed, it's like getting further away from those individual stories because we don't have money for all the freelancers. Yeah. We don't have money for Scene. So you get to cover all of arts and entertainment. And now I'm doing some food and bev stuff too. So it's like, I'm just on all the beats right now, which is fun because it expands what you know about the city you live in, and like you learn more and you get to know more people, which is always exciting for me because that's what I love about the job. But it's like, man, I really miss just sitting down and writing music stories all the time, know?
I have noticed too, like a lot of the entertainment stories are very brief.
Right.
And I see your name on almost all of them, and I'm like, what is going on over here? Like, this girl is covering everything.
Yeah.
And you're not able to go as in depth as
right. It's like, so I get to do like basically a cover type story every week where I get to go really in depth on one story. And it takes about a week to, do the research, get the interviews, to write a 1,000-word piece that's informed and has many sources.
And you got to get it edited.
And then, so I got to do that within a week. And then I also have to do something similar to that for the food section now. And then I got to write these like briefs on what's happening. I try to, I used to do like way more of those in addition to these like feature stories. And now it's like, man, there's so much that's coming through. And we have these other publications that are covering those, like Holy City Center. Every brief that comes through, every press release you want to see that comes through, that's getting covered there. And City Paper does a lot of that too. So I'm trying to focus more on those like larger stories, like give them the time that they deserve, and then have a good a good story every week that goes in depth, at least 1 or 2 stories like that.
Have you, has Post and Courier, the family of the Post and Courier, looked more into getting into video of any kind, or is it just kind of
during the coronavirus, we did have a really cool series that my coworker Adam Parker, who used to write for Arts Entertainment section, but he got moved over. He started this video series where we had a bunch of bands come in and like play a little set in our library and did a video series with
your
them.
own tiny desk
It
series.
was like a tiny desk thing. It was really fun. And so we did that for for a couple months during the coronavirus. We were like releasing one of those every day. And that was
day?
Every day. We were doing one song from the set every day. So it was like they'd come in, record like 3 or 4 songs maybe, and then we'd release one a day. Because this was like when we were like, we don't even know if shows are ever going to be back again. It was like so scary. So we're like, we got to keep people entertained. We got to support these local artists.
Yeah.
So we did that, which was really cool. But I would say overall, we've kind of pivoted more podcasts. So we have this Post and Courier podcast now, which is fun. I was on that podcast too recently. And so, they're doing more like, they're trying to do some more stuff.
The podcast thing to me has been, like this was born out of the coronavirus because it's like, I can't go feed my creative spirit of going out and doing things because I want to. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like going out to shoot a show because I want to, not because I have to. It's a total different thing.
It is.
And it keeps me sane because I'm busy. I've got a lot of responsibilities in my life. And so doing things like this that, what's the worst that can happen?
This is like your de-stress right here.
Yeah.
And it's fun to talk to people. I mean, I love it. I love getting to know people.
It's so cool to get to know people that you might not, that you get the vibe like, oh, that person's cool.
Yeah.
But you're like, I don't know anything about them really. Like obviously I didn't know you even grew up here. Like it's kind of a basic thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just wondering, as we all start moving into different forms of media, because I'll bring up Matt again, who's kind of using his skills to get into the streaming world of like, dealing with people, the production side of streaming and all that stuff. And as you see, I'm not videotaping any of this kind of, I'm like, that's too much work.
That's a lot.
That's too much of my time. Like audio is perfectly fine. Right. I don't like to watch podcasts either. I'm being selfish. I like to listen to podcasts while I'm doing something else.
Yes. Same.
So that's kind of how I tackle this. But that's why I ask, like, are there other things that you guys are starting to look into? Because the print thing is definitely...
I think the biggest thing right now is kind of that online transformation of at one point they're going to phase out print. I mean, I don't know if it's anytime soon, but they're looking in that direction. I hope not too. And I mean, they've expanded throughout the state. That was a big thing we did recently. So we have a Post and Courier Columbia, Post and Courier Myrtle Beach, Post and Courier Greenville now, which is something that I didn't expect to happen. I thought we're based in Charleston. We have been for a long ass time, but that's been cool. So we've got like reporter pods kind of all over the state now, covering things on statewide level. So
is that because other markets are shrinking what they have to offer, and you guys saw an opportunity, or is it just because you guys want to grow?
I think it's a mix of both, honestly. I think there's stories to be told here. We could be telling them, and we can get more online subscriptions from people who live in those areas. A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B.
There you go. Yeah.
Also, I'm not on the business side of the Post and Courier, so who knows what they're doing over there, man. I'm over in the newsroom.
You're just what they sell.
Yeah, exactly.
That's just awesome, though. So I don't want to ignore the elephant in the room. We kind of touched upon it right before we started recording.
Yeah.
How has the vibe been covering this election, and more specifically the events of the week that we're recording this, which is the actual election week?
Right. I think it's so interesting for me, somebody who's not hard news, not on the political side of the newspaper. I'm not covering any of that, but seeing my coworkers who are. And I mean, it's always frantic. I feel like election day, craziness ensues. Everyone's just like in that frenetic state. It's just what's going on, what's going to happen. And this year it's been totally different because we're still in that state days later, and we're probably going to be for a little longer too.
It's an unbelievable, totally believable this whole year.
It's historic. It's a historic year. We've not experienced anything like it. I don't think anyone at the newspaper has experienced anything like it. And those beats are more important than ever, I think, because of that, Yeah. Covering those like day-to-day protests that we've had, covering, the issues that have been happening for years, but we're talking about them now, and the community's talking about them now. So I think it's important to have those journalists who are doing that work, and then the arts on my side reflect what's going on in real life, So, I mean, a lot of art is issue-based. It surrounds what's going on in the community. So I have a story to tell on my side too, Yeah. So you're kind of looking at it. You're in the fire, but you're like I'm
protected.
like a step back. You know, it's like, all right, there's an exhibit now that's talking about these issues. I'm not talking necessarily to the person who is protesting on the street right now, but I'm talking to the artist
who's reacting
to it. Exactly.
That's
so.
I'm kind of interested to see what comes out of all of this as people, because understandably, a lot of artists are in a depression. They're locked up right now. They went from all that fear and anger, and then right now uncertainty.
There's gonna be a lot of good art next year. I think it's being created right now. I think stuff has been created this whole time. We're seeing a little bit of it right now, but I think with everything going on, you're going to get so many different avenues of inspiration for art, music that we're going to see next year.
I sure hope so.
I'm sure we are.
It took a while before the good protests music to really start coming out,
Well, I think this time too, people wanted to take the time to process it a little more than they would maybe normally, because it was like, we need to really sit down and think about what's happening this time. This isn't just, I'm going to gut react to what's going on as I have been for years. It's like, whoa, we need a complete overhaul kind of deal. So it's like, what does that mean for me and my role that I play in this?
So, all right. With all that said,
all that thrown out on the table.
Yes. What has been your favorite album this year?
That's hard. Okay, so there's a lot of good ones, but
and it doesn't have to be
related to that.
Political or
well, I did. So I've started a little side project where I'm doing a monthly zine, just an online zine that I'm creating, writing for, just to get my music, creativity out. No, I'm not printing it. I'm just doing it online. It's one of those things where I needed to write about exclusively music again, since I haven't gotten to do that as much for the paper. I was like, I need this outlet to do that in my own life. And so I've been doing album reviews for that. And I just did this one that was really cool. It was by Black Thought.
Like THOT?
THOUGHT.
Okay.
Yes.
I was like, really?
That's a little different.
That's a little.
It's one of the guys from The Roots who, okay. And the whole album was, he's done like other volumes kind of this project, but this I think was the third volume that he came out with, and it's all like related to stuff that's been happening this summer, the state of the world, but also like his own like personal struggles through it all at the same time, because sometimes we forget all this stuff is happening throughout the world, but like every individual is still struggling with what they struggle with normally on top of that. So
right.
And he kind of touches on both of those things, which I really liked. So I did an album review for that album on my latest zine.
That's kind of what's on your mind right now.
That's what's on my mind right now. That album was really good. And then locally, there's an artist called Sunray who she's been doing like some R&B pop type stuff, and she came out with her first album this summer, and it's really good. I'm a big fan.
I feel like there's stuff like that I'm totally missing because
she was supposed to play at Cultura Fest this year, which didn't happen.
Cultura Fest last year was like the surprise, like
so good,
wonderful event of Charleston, I was like, whoa, I had no idea what to expect. And John invited me to come like take pictures of it. And I was like, okay,
this is really cool.
And I was like, oh my gosh.
We have so much talent here.
So talented.
So much talent across all genres.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's crazy.
And just passion, people doing things for the right reasons.
Yeah, it's such a collaborative environment here versus competitive. That's what I love about the music scene here. Nobody's out to get each other. This is like, you play music, I do too. Let's support each other. You know, I'll play in your band. I mean, you know, well, if you want me to, if you need me to.
I don't know if this is grounds to talk about, but I believe you're still dating.
Yes.
I had this joke. I had this really awful joke that I wanted to say. And I was like, I'll spoil the joke and I'll just tell you it's a joke. I was like, so you're dating half of the bands in Charleston.
Yes, I am right now. Brett Nash. Yep.
Yeah. So he's pretty much like.
He's in so many bands.
He's the heartbeat of like the Charleston indie rock scene.
I know. I love it. I love it.
I love that guy.
Me too.
But not in the way you do. But he's another one I want to have on this podcast to get to know him more, because every time I talk to him, it's always just like, I'll post a picture of some band randomly and he'd be like, did they play this song? I was like, oh wow, someone knows who I'm actually watching.
Brett has a really good a really like interesting music taste. A lot of stuff that I had no idea about, and he's enlightened me to.
Oh, he seems like he is definitely a musician's musician.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, that's why he loves like parquet courts.
Exactly. Which
like,
I did know parquet courts before. I've taken photos of them. I wrote an album review for them.
The first time I saw them live, they played one song for the whole set, and it was just them making noise, and that was it.
Right.
And that was the whole set.
You gotta love that though. I love experimental stuff like that, especially when you're seeing it at a mainstream festival, and you're like, nobody expects this, and it makes it that much better because of that. You know, I love it.
But that's some of the joy.
Yeah, so I'm dating half the bands in Charleston. That's the takeaway from this.
That was my bad, easy joke. Yes, very simple, low effort joke.
I love it.
That's also highly offensive. Sorry.
But also true. So there we go.
So art wise in general.
Yeah.
What has stood out for you in the last, 2020 is such a weird year because
it's a weird art year.
Because if I throw out an album that came out this year, you're gonna be like, oh shit, that came out this year.
Right.
Like Car Seat Headrest put out a new record this year.
Right.
You're like, oh,
wait,
fuck, I
really?
forgot.
Yeah, exactly. Anything that happened before March is like a blur. Like, what even happened then? I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
When I look at, like, I every year I make a best of whatever the year is playlist on Spotify. And every week when the new music comes out, I'll add my favorite singles that came out that week onto this playlist. And then I'll be listening to it. And I'm like, oh, I thought this song came out 5 years ago. When it comes to like something that came out in February, I'm like, this is the longest
year ever. I feel like it's been like 5 years in 1 year.
Yeah, but
we've all aged that much at least.
The range of different stuff though, like
I love the stuff that's come out this year that's been like, let's directly talk about what's happening head on. I love that kind of art. Like, why not? I mean, now's the time to make it more than ever, right? I think this is going to hold till the end of the year. My album of the year is by a long shot RTJ4. Simply because they eerily talked about 2020. I got to listen to this. Yeah.
You know, Run the Jewels?
I haven't listened to the new Run the Jewels though.
Okay. They wrote and recorded this song before the pandemic happened.
Yeah. Did it like predict what happened?
Not so much what happened with the pandemic, just where the country was going to go.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It's because it's a more serious Run the Jewels record. Mm-hmm. And when you listen to it, especially by the time it came out, you're like, holy fuck, these guys like it. All right, I'll give you an example of why it's going to stick. This is an album I know is going to stick with me for a long time. 9/11, 2001. There were some records that came out that year, right before or right around the time with imagery in them, that really kind of like was of that 9/11 thing.
Yeah.
Like a lot of airplane imagery and things like that, where it just kind of, it was just creepy. Like me talking about it to you right now, I've got chills.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
it's weird because I feel like people were connecting on a certain level where they might not say, hey, there's a terrorist attack going to happen. They were connecting emotionally on a level that we all ended up going through. And I feel
like America right now is like when you bottle up all of those emotions for way too long and then you have to break at some point.
Yeah.
And man, this year we just broke wide open.
But the art, the languages of the art, right. They start talking to you.
Because it's like, it's a universal thing. It's like everyone can feel this energy right now. Mm-hmm. And maybe some people were feeling that before, like. Yeah.
Well, I'm taking this election too seriously.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's right. Maybe I'm not saying the right words. I'm being affected by it seriously. Like,
right.
It's making me super anxious and anxiety. Like, there's a lot of anxiety. I'm deeply, deeply disturbed by the sheer amount of people in this country that are okay with.
Right.
And
well, I think it's important to feel things deeply. It can be unhealthy at some point, though. Mm-hmm. Everyone has to have their self-care, take care of yourself and your own mental health, and people have to remember that through all of this. But if you're on the opposite side and you're not feeling things deeply and you're not affected by what's happening right now, that's worse in my book, because you don't really know what's going on then. You're uninformed, is what I think.
I have to keep telling myself that the reason why is that people aren't paying attention.
Right.
That it isn't part of their life. They're not consuming it. They're not.
If it doesn't directly affect you, mm-hmm. people often, don't pay attention to it. That's just the way of the world. I mean, that goes for me and things too. It goes for every single person and things that just you're not being necessarily impacted with.
Right.
And that's why the news is so important, I think, because it gets you out of, just what's happening to you and puts you on this plane of, wow, all this is happening all over the world right now, mm-hmm. which can be overwhelming. And, it's not healthy to consume that constantly. I mean, for anyone, but it's good to know what's going on and be informed about it.
Yeah.
Because your problems are not as bad as a lot of other people's problems. I'll tell you that.
But the things that really send me over the edge, and I've been pretty good, especially this week, of just not even diving into the social media aspect at all. Just there's no reason. But every once in a while, you'll go on there. Like somebody tagged me on a post, and I made the mistake of opening it up. I look at it, and I read the comments, and you could feel yourself getting flush. You could feel yourself getting angry that somebody actually said. This is a belief that they weren't joking. They actually said that this COVID-19 coronavirus is a Democratic ploy
right.
to disrupt Donald Trump. It's a plot against Donald Trump. And I'm like, we're just one fucking country.
Right.
The whole world is going through this.
Yeah.
How can you be that much of an asshole to believe that the whole world is conspiring against this one fucking asshole?
It's people who are uninformed,
But that's why then you start to think okay, maybe they're just
uninformed,
dumb.
Uneducated. Yeah.
Or dumb is not even kind. Maybe ignorant. I like the word ignorant because it basically gives them the benefit of the doubt that they just don't know any better because no one told them. But I mean,
it's hard to reconcile with the fact that people so easily believe in straight misinformation.
Yeah, and I keep trying to check myself too, because I'm like, okay, how much of misinformation am I taking in?
Right.
How much of the feedback loop am I a victim of by reading and then eventually start weeding out the people that annoy you, and then you're only hearing from the people that agree with you.
Right, that's dangerous too, I think,
And so
you got to have journalism, both sides of every story,
Yeah, and when you go out in real life and you talk to these people, they're fucking awesome. They're nice people.
Yeah.
They're great people. And you're like, okay, how do I reconcile that they're okay with somebody who's basically dismantling our country in front of our eyes, and blaming everyone else as they do it and making a problem and then fixing it and saying, look at this thing I fixed that I broke to begin with. And you're like, well, hold on a second. How do you, and then you realize they don't care. They're just like, that's the guy that was on TV that made me laugh and I voted for him.
Mm-hmm.
He's doing a great job because the economy's doing well. It's like, what economy?
That's not doing well right now. That's for sure.
No. Sorry, I didn't want to go down this path.
No.
But I definitely, speaking to someone who works in the journalism field, as a journalist, even though that's not you're not political in that aspect, I know it's just kind of weird to see to be.
It's a weird time to be alive. It's a weird time to be alive.
So historic. Like, this year is going to be one of those years. Like, okay, here's a good question for you. Because you're obviously an inquisitive person and you probably have a knack for wanting to know what happened historically, in the maybe in the country, in the world. Has there ever been a time in the past before you were alive or when you were too young where you go like, I wonder what that was like living through that?
Oh my gosh, every era of history. So fascinating, you know? I mean, what was interesting to me with this year with the coronavirus was looking back at the 1919 flu. And looking back at that year, you don't just see that we have a pandemic almost exactly 100 years ago, but also we had the same kind of social strife that we're going through now happening on a crazy level back then too. It was like all of this kind of comes at once in a wave. I mean, it's like predictable, but not. It's like, this is going to happen again. And the exact sort of things happened back then as are happening now. It's like people are off work, you know, people have time to really like dive in and think about, wow, we have a lot that's messed up with what's happening right now in the world. People think about that and then apply that. I mean, there were like strikes and there were, you know, it's similar to protests. And you had that same exact kind of pattern that happened this summer happening back then. And it's so interesting that it happened in the exact same order. It's crazy, you know?
Have you studied what happened in the years following?
Well, yeah, because then you got the Roaring '20s, baby.
Well, yeah, and then the Great Depression.
Exactly. It's like, that's going to happen, you know?
Like where, and there's so much of like that stuff. Like, are we going to repeat ourselves? Are we going to learn from what happened there and maybe course correct?
And that's the whole thing is like, you know, do we learn from history? Because it's still so distant from us. You know, we didn't live back then. You know, maybe a grandparent, maybe grandparents are still alive from them, doubtful, but you know, it's so weird that we have this stuff documented and we can look back at it and go like, okay, we've gotten better on so many things, but how come we screwed this up so badly? Yeah.
And this might be the first year where you start to go, or first year in my adult life where I go, holy cow, like the role of government in a situation like this is important. And if the government doesn't do anything, it's really like scary. Now, I'm not saying that the government didn't do anything. There was a lot of things that went on in the government at the beginning financially for small businesses that was fantastic.
Right.
It was great. Did they do enough? Did they keep up? Did they send the right messaging? There was a top-down issue where they were sending mixed messages. There was lots of opportunities for corruption and all of that stuff. And I don't want to get depressing talk right here, but when I look back at certain points of history, like I always thought about what it would be like to live in the late 60s.
Yeah. I think about that a lot. I'm actually reading a book right now kind of about that time frame and just what it was like. And it is interesting because it kind of repeats the Roaring '20s kind of mindset of like, well, we can drown out all the issues in the world by sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Yeah. And that doesn't solve all our problems, right? I think it can help people cope with things. And I think it, you know, obviously, I grew up on classic rock in that era of music that I find
the art from that came out of that.
Right. Yeah. The art that came out of that is crazy and amazing. And so it's like all this good stuff's happening, but you're just putting kind of a blanket over these issues that have existed.
And then politically, you had all these assassinations.
Right.
You had Nixon. You had, like that whole. Yeah, and in some aspects,
it's scary.
In some aspects, we're doing worse. In some aspects, at least we're not, assassinating political figures.
Have we evolved
in our country?
Beyond that? I don't know.
So I wonder what it,
what's it going to be next? Are we getting our roaring 20 years?
Yeah. Well, I like talking to people who were alive during that time and saying, well, how do you compare that to this? Because it's such a, but it's hard to ask that question because they're looking at it from the lens of someone who was maybe a lot younger at that time.
Right.
And now they're a lot more mature.
Yeah.
So it's hard to compare the two. But we are definitely living through these crazy times. But then I ask my son, who's 16, like, hey, what do you think is going to go on with this election? He's like, I don't know. Is there an election going on?
Right, which I didn't care about politics at all when I was 16 either. Yeah. I didn't. I was like, why would I vote? I don't think that does anything, right? And then as you get older, you're like, get out there and vote, every single one of you,
Yeah, and as a father, I look at this situation now and I'm so much more concerned about these things because it's like, well, yeah, it's important for you to know what's going on because a lot of the reasons why you're sitting in your underwear all day for the last 6 months, going to school on your computer instead of in class. Has to do with
what's going on in the world.
Yeah, so you should really be kind of, I get it, you should be a kid, but I want you to remember what you're going through because later on it'll inform you. Hopefully.
Yeah, it'll click. One day it's going to click. It's be like, whoa, man.
And you got to be careful too, because my daughter is, she's very political now.
Yes. I follow her on Instagram.
Yes. She kind of reminds me of you in a lot of ways because she went to college for writing.
Cool.
And the first semester going for creative writing, she realized.
That was my minor, was creative writing.
Yeah. So then she actually transferred. And she's now at College of Charleston, but she now she's doing political science.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, she's gone very hard into she will argue with me like I'm not on her side enough.
Right.
I'm trying to even this out. I'm still trying. I'm an older man at this point in comparison. And I'm still trying to figure out like where it is because like I said before, there's plenty of people I disagree with politically that are fantastic people that you get to know. And you're like, well, okay, what's the difference here? Yeah. And I try to read stuff. I try to learn more about why people think the way they do and believe the way they do.
I'm not a believer at all in cancel culture. Like, I think that's been a big part of our society. That's
interesting. Oh, we're getting into this is good.
I don't believe in it. I don't think that's helpful in the sense that you're not allowing people to grow as humans. You're cutting them off from potentially becoming better humans with a wider thought range in the future because they're never going to want to talk to you again. They're never going to want to look on your side of the story again. If you just cut them out of your life completely, I just think that's stifling their opportunity to become better. You got to give people, again, everything's on a different level of offenses, if you want to call it that, right? Like people do things that are bad all the time. Everyone does stuff that's bad though. And you got to realize, you've done stuff that's bad in your life too. Maybe it's not on that same level, but you got to look at how you've grown from that mistake in your own life and moved on from there. And everyone deserves that opportunity.
It's extremely upsetting to hold people to a standard that there's no way they could have even understood.
Right. And also you have to understand the different cultures of different time periods. If you're looking back on what somebody did 30 years ago, yes, it can be very bad and very wrong. But within the context of that culture, it wasn't quite the same. And you have to kind of understand that too.
Yeah. I have a weird take on the cancel culture thing because I want people to be able, I want to defend unpopular speech. I want people to have the right to say whatever the hell they want. But I also want them to be held accountable for it.
Right.
I don't think they should lose their livelihood or lose their job or get deplatformed necessarily.
You got to realize what you do comes with consequences.
But I also think that, there needs to be a way to explain how serious it is when somebody gets into a dangerous place.
Yeah, I agree. There needs to be a balance of like some kind of in-between space. I don't know what that is though.
But instead of canceling them, maybe it's embracing
help them, you know?
I think in the case of like Donald Trump, it became very obvious. So this is being recorded on Thursday night. And he had, right as Kalyn walked in, I just finished watching his address to the nation of literally 20 minutes of nonstop lies.
Right.
It was the most lies per minute I think he's told this whole time. But what I gained from it is that the man is terribly like in need of approval from people.
Yeah.
Like he is seriously like emotionally at some point in his life.
So emotionally
he did not
stunted.
get hugged.
Right.
And I think it's important that maybe these people that are so awful in the world, that are maybe dangerous with what they say, maybe the people that are being offended need to like hug them. Not actually physically hug them, but like go up to them.
It's the whole, if you watch just an episode of Criminal Minds, like it goes back to that. It's like all these people who end up doing terrible things, usually there's a reason behind it where they were abused or they were in some way affected when they were younger, or they have mental illness they're struggling with. It's almost always these other things affecting them that end up not necessarily causing them to do what they do, but they definitely have a big impact on that.
Wow.
And that's fascinating. So you have to think about that in relation to bad people, right?
Yeah. And when it comes to certain ideas that are misleading or I don't want to say incorrect, but just opposed to the current maybe mindset of somebody who's, for lack of a better term, woke. You know what I'm saying? Somebody who has learned about the effects of maybe things that have happened throughout history that were acceptable at one time and they really weren't acceptable to a whole group of people.
Right.
And so trying to explain to somebody, hey, like that thing that you're doing is bad. Like there has to be a good way of
right. Because it's the whole, again, you have to say if you're actively hurting other people in some way, that's not okay.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you need to learn why that's not okay and understand that aspect of it. And I think just canceling somebody doesn't give them the time to really know that and understand that, which a lot of people, I think if they, went that route and had a learning experience would change their mind. But then again, that's me being an optimist.
Yeah. Well, have you ever like read a book by someone you didn't agree with, or watched an interview? Even if it's something as simple as watching or listening to a podcast of someone that drives you up the wall, that just to see what they're coming up, where they're coming from.
And I mean, I feel like as a journalist, you're trying to see both sides of every story. And I think so maybe in some sense, like my job has made me more like that in the real world of like, it's not just this one-sided thing and there are reasons that everyone does what they do. And I like to think that, people have the capacity for change and to do the right thing. And sometimes we don't give them that chance,
Yeah. Or I do.
But then there's a lot of shitty people. So.
Well, yeah. But I do believe that the overwhelming majority of people are good.
Yeah.
And they have good intentions. It's just that we are by nature very selfish creatures. Yeah. Like we are programmed to take care of ourselves.
Right. If you can't get beyond that, then if you don't have empathy for other people, that's
right. That's it, and it's a hard thing to learn. That's where these
problems come into play. I feel like
it's such a hard thing to learn or to teach, because people, if I told you something about you that you were taken aback by, you get defensive.
Yeah.
Right? If I said
That's
I didn't
natural.
like your hair color, you'd be like,
whoa now.
and you would carry that too, even though you're like, well, I don't give a shit what that guy thinks. You'd go home and be like,
carry it, yeah.
What do you think of my hair color? Is my hair color's okay? Like, these people will get in your head regardless, but you'll get defensive, and then they get this whole thing. Yeah, man,
it's so hard.
It's definitely hard. It's definitely hard. But I think this whole pandemic has put a microscope on the problem of social media, because people are stuck inside for so long. People, I mean, Charleston, we're a little bit less affected like people are in really major cities. Like, we're still able to kind of go out and socialize to a certain degree. There's a bit of, I don't know what you would call it, but we're not as bad off. When I say bad off, I mean like locked down as other places in the world.
Right.
Maybe it's part of the climate. We're not as on top of each other, whatever it may be. But still, I mean, there's a lot more people stuck online.
It's just crazy for me as somebody who grew up before social media. Like, I still had those formative years of my life before I had a cell phone, before I had dial-up internet. I was playing Neopets on dial-up internet. Like, that was my childhood. So, and now you see like all these kids 4 years old who have a phone or an iPad, and then they're in middle school and everyone's talking about everyone on social media. I can't even imagine, because the bullying is already bad enough in real life, and to have that on top of it,
and you can never,
it's crazy.
If somebody were to bully you in, I think 7th grade might be the worst year of any child's life.
I kind of think you're right. I think that year was pretty rough.
And if someone were to bully you, right, yes, you'd have the emotional impact of it, but it went away.
Exactly.
Now it's like 10 years later that will show up as a memory,
right, on your Facebook or on your Instagram or whatever. Oh my god. Yeah.
So I think we're winding down.
We got into some deep stuff right there, man. I didn't expect that.
I like to let it go where it's gonna go. You have a lot of different things that you are doing, so let's try to get some plugs in here and figure out how people can
find me.
Ooh,
okay. Well, Charleston Scene, obviously, like, you go to charlestonscene.com. That's a lot of what I've been writing. My Instagram handle is at Between the Sound Machine, and there you'll find my link to my personal zine that I've been writing.
I can't wait to see this now. I didn't even know.
Yeah, it's kind of a new project. I'm only 3 months in. I'm doing like one a month, and it's just like a feature with a local artist, a playlist, a kind of a personal essay on something that's going on in the music scene that I want to talk about, album reviews, and festival photography that I've done in the past, because I miss music festivals so much. I was like, let's relive the golden days.
I know. Every once in a while, I'll fire up Lightroom and I'll go through it like an old festival.
Oh, I love it.
Look for a picture I might have ignored.
That's what I did recently. I went through a bunch and edited a bunch of old photos.
That's so cool.
But yeah, so those are probably the 2 best places to find me.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for coming on here.
Thank you for having me. I love talks like this.
You lived up to my expectations, which were, I knew that it would be a fun conversation with getting to know somebody who I knew was pretty cool.
Thanks.
And now I think you're very cool. So,
thank you.
Not that
cool
my
points over here.
Not that my judgment of cool means dick. But
well, I think you're pretty cool too.
Well, thank you. See, that means something, because it means something. I don't know. It means something whenever anyone thinks you're cool.
Totally.
All right, folks, stay cool.
Stay cool out there.
Wasn't she awesome? I really enjoyed that conversation. Before you get going, don't forget to subscribe to the show, share it with your friends, and also connect with me on the website. It's jwnpod.com, or you can connect with me through Instagram. It's at Joe Latex, JOEL, 8, and X, Joe Latex. Joe Latex. Joe Latex. Anyway, the long story. Have a great day. Peace.